The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the retrial of Karen Reed, a woman accused of murdering her police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, but someone who has thousands of supporters who believe she is innocent. Here's the story. A blizzard was heading towards the greater Boston area, but before the storm, Boston police officer John O'Keefe met his girlfriend, college professor Karen Reed, at a local bar in downtown Canton. At the end of the night, they were invited to an after party at another officer's home. Karen drove to that house, but she never got out of the car. John did. The next morning, John O'Keefe was found dead on the front lawn of that home. The question is, how did he die? Prosecutors say Karen Reed intentionally struck him with her car and murdered him. The defense says John went inside the home and something happened. He was killed and placed onto the front yard by people at that after party. In the spring of 2024, the jury could not come to a unanimous verdict, and now Karen Reed will be tried again. But before the trial, both sides are battling it out inside the courtroom. We're getting some new information that's been revealed in some court filings in this case as both sides amp up to get ready for this big retrial that, of course, you'll see on court TV. And part of it involves Brian Higgins, an ATF special agent. He testified in the first case, but we're learning a little bit more information. Brian Higgins is someone who Karen Reed shared a kiss with at a time when she was dating John O'Keefe. Brian Higgins is someone who knows everyone, who was at the after party, and was also the subject of someone that the defense was pointing the finger at being part of what they say really happened to John O'Keefe that night. Let's take a look at some of his testimony from the trial.
Now, you leave the residence at 34 Fairview, and where did you go from there?
I went back to the Canton Police.
And why was it that you went back to the Canton Police Station?
Well, we had traveled down for the services for those police officers, and we anticipated staying the following day. We had, I think I had said that we left the day earlier. So I had left a key to the surveillance vehicle on top of my desk so that somebody could move the vehicle, because a lot of times Chief Berkowitz would get after me as a courtesy. I was parking vehicles there, sometimes my personal, but primarily my work vehicles. And one thing he asked me, just leave the vehicles in the middle of the parking lot so that snow could be cleared. So the reason for heading back there was to move those vehicles, because if I didn't do it then, I would have had to get up early and do it. And I also know they plow through the night, so that would be the reason for heading back.
You had an initial interview with Massachusetts State Police on February 3rd, 2022.
Yes.
Correct? And you indicated during the course of that interview, which was just a couple of days, 5 days, after the events in question, that you left Brian Albert's house, went to Canton PD to, quote, fulfill some administrative obligations, end quote, correct? You later said, when you testified in front of the grand jury on April 28th, that you went to Canton PD to do, quote, administrative work, correct?
Yes.
You never mentioned...
I said administrative things.
You said administrative work was your testimony in your transcript.
I believe it was things, but okay.
Okay. Can we agree, Mr. Higgins, that you didn't mention anything about moving cars around, correct?
Well, that would be administrative.
Mr. Higgins, you weren't actually at Canton PD to do administrative work at 1:30 in the morning, were you?
I was moving the vehicles. I'm sure it's on video.
All right, you heard that last part. I'm sure it's on video. So again, the defense is insinuating that he went back for some other reason to go back to the Canton Police Department. He's an ATF agent, but he works out of the local police department, so he knows all the local cops. So take a look at this. This is from a defense filing.
Post-trial on October 10th, 2024, the Commonwealth again provided new surveillance footage. So new videos being given to the defense. This is after the trial in October. The footage shows Brian Higgins arrive in the parking lot of the Canton Police Department at 1:26 a.m., enter the police department, and speak to some unidentified individual or individuals on the phone as he is leaving the Canton Police Department between 1:34:52 seconds and 1:34:56 seconds. So what's going on here? Like, he said he went there to move the cars. He said there's video, you'll see it. So I guess they got the video. But on the video, he's on the phone. He's on the phone at 1:34, which brings us to the first question in our investigation. Who was Brian Higgins talking to at 1:34 a.m.? Fair question. It's a fair question. He was at the after party. He knows John O'Keefe. He knows Karen Reed. He was a witness in the case. Nothing was mentioned about a phone call during the trial, though. I don't think. I don't recall it. Well, let's help figure this out with our trial insiders. Joining me, Karen Reed, supporter and creator of the Justice for Officer John O'Keefe and Karen Reed Facebook page, Nick Rocco, and the creator behind the Yellow Cottage Tales YouTube channel, Kevin Lenahan. Thank you both for being here. All right, Nick, do you have any idea who Brian Higgins was talking to at 1:34 in the morning at the Canton PD?
If I had to take a guess who he was on the phone with, it would be one of three people, either Brian Albert, Chief Berkowitz, or Kevin Albert. And the reason why I would say that is because in his testimony, he stated that he left 34 Fairview around 1 in the morning. Now, we know he arrived at 1:26, and it does not take 26 minutes, even in the snow, to get from 34 Fairview to the Canton Police Department. So that would only insinuate he left 34 Fairview a little later than 1 in the morning. So he gets there, say he grabs the key. Now he's leaving the Canton Police Department, and he's on the cell phone. So that's at 1:34. And in his testimony, he said he arrived home in Brockton at 1:40 in the morning, right? So we know he's there at 1:34, and most likely at that point, that's when if he did move vehicles, that would have been when he moved the vehicles. Say it takes 5 or 10 minutes to move the vehicles. He's not getting home until after 2 in the morning. So he just left the Alberts home. My only guess would be that he's on the phone with one of those people inside the house.
Nick, do we know where the camera is there that would get this surveillance video?
It's most likely in the outside showing, probably the parking lot there.
All right. Kevin, what are your thoughts here? Now learning that Brian Higgins goes back to the Canton PD. We know the testimony at the trial. He says he's moving the cars because the storm is coming in. Everyone's preparing for the storm. But he's on the phone at 1:34 a.m. Who could he be talking to?
Well, so one thing that we do know with something close to certainty is that he was not talking to any of the witnesses or any of the people that Nick just mentioned. And the reason we know that is because the feds got the phone records of all of these people, all right? And then the feds questioned Brian Higgins in their federal grand jury. And both sides had the transcripts from this federal grand jury, including Karen's defense team. And Karen's defense team did not ask Brian Higgins, who did you talk to at that call? Which means the feds did not ask that question. So the feds know who Brian Higgins called, and it was nothing of interest to them, so that's why they didn't ask him. So certainly if Brian Higgins at that time had called somebody inside the house, then the U.S. attorney would have asked him about that, and it would have been in the transcript. And he didn't, so it's not. So the question never came up. So I'm going to guess that he was calling in a pizza, calling to check his voicemail, calling something private. It's a private thing. It has nothing. If it has no bearing on the case, it's really none of our business who he's calling.
Are you troubled at all, Kevin, that it didn't come up in his testimony? That, oh yeah, I went back, I moved the cars, I did this, I did that, then I called so-and-so. Like, that didn't seem to come out.
Why would it? I mean, if he's calling in a pizza before he goes home, or he's calling to check his voicemails, why?
You're not. First of all, you're not getting a pizza at 1:34 in a blizzard, are you?
I used to. Back in my drinking days.
Okay. I just don't know who would be open at that point to get a pizza at 134. So
We know D&E wasn't.
Right. Exactly. All right. So, Nick, why is this important? Do you think this is important?
Well, first off, they're giving new video evidence, or they want to call it new because the defense has not seen this yet, months after the trial ended. Now, the Commonwealth has had all this video in their possession for over 2.5 years, and then all of a sudden they decide, oh, we're going to give you this piece of information now, when that would have been important for the defense to question Brian Higgins during his questioning in the trial. Who did you call at this time? Who were you on the phone with? He could have cleared that up. But instead, the Commonwealth wants to say everything is deleted now, but yet they've been providing new video footage in the middle of the trial, at the end of the trial, in the beginning of the trial. So something smells here, because they were saying that within 30 days, everything gets overwritten. But that means someone saved this footage within that 30-day period, and it's been in the possession of the Commonwealth, and they've been kind of keeping it away from the defense. So I don't know why they decided to give it over now, but it clearly shows, he's on the phone with somebody, and ultimately the feds only handed over certain information. The defense doesn't have his full cell phone records because Judge Beverly Cannoni denied that in the first trial. So we don't necessarily know who he called, and I'm sure if they file another motion to get his phones, I would hope Judge Bev gives it to them.
All right. Nick Rocco, Kevin Lanahan are going to stick around. Coming up next, should the defense, as Nick says, get all of Brian Higgins' phone records?
Then you drove to a military base and you threw both the destroyed SIM card and the phone into a dumpster, did you not?
Well, I was cutting through the base.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Did you take the SIM card out of your phone, yes or no?
I don't know.
Did you testify that that's what you do when you get rid of phones, sir?
What I said was that might have been the extent of it if I was to have done that.
And you either cut up the SIM card or ripped it up, correct?
I believe what I testified to was
I'm not asking you what you testified to. I'm asking you today, did you either cut up the SIM card or rip it up?
cut it up or broke it.
And you'll agree with me that you took that destroyed SIM card and put it in a trash bag, did you not?
I believe it went in a trash bag, yes.
Then you drove to a military base and you threw both the destroyed SIM card and the phone into a dumpster, did you not?
Well, I was cutting through the base, and I believe how I testified
Did you drive
was...
to a military base, sir?
I was cutting through a base, yes.
Did you drive to it?
Yes, sir.
And then you put both the destroyed SIM card and the phone itself, which were in a trash bag, into a dumpster on that military base, did you not?
I believe that's what I did, yes.
Okay. When that happened during the trial, we heard all this testimony about what Brian Higgins did with his phone. And you have to look at it and say, why would you do that? It just seems suspicious that you're like destroying your phone and ripping up the SIM card and driving somewhere to get rid of it. And now the issue of Brian Higgins and phone calls again is at the forefront of the Karen Reed case as we get ready for the retrial. Take a listen. This again is testimony from the trial. Brian Higgins talking about the famous butt dials that occurred that night.
So you testified that the first call you received after returning home on the 29th was a call from Chief Berkowitz just before 7 a.m., which woke you up. Is that right?
It was around 6:30-ish, I think.
Okay. Your testimony previously was at some point before 7 a.m., that call was the one that woke you up.
Yes.
And it turns out, Mr. Higgins, that was a lie, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't a lie.
When you were asked that question at a previous hearing, you didn't know that the person questioning you had your phone records, did you?
I assume they did.
And you were thereafter confronted with those phone records, correct?
I was asked about them, yes.
And those phone records established that you and Brian Albert actually exchanged not one, but two phone calls at 2:22 a.m. that morning, at a time when you claimed you were in bed asleep, correct?
I have no recollection of any phone calls.
And it indicates that on January 29th, 2022, at 2:22 and 35 seconds, you received a call from Brian Albert, duration of 1 second, correct?
Yes.
In other words, Brian Albert called you at 2:22 and 35 seconds, but it looks like you missed the call, correct?
I see the 1 second call, yes.
There's a second call just below that. On the same date at 2:22 and 52 seconds from you to Brian Albert. Do you see that one?
Yes.
And the duration of that call is 22 seconds, correct?
I see that, yes.
So 17 seconds after you missed a call, according to these records, from Brian Albert, you called him back, and there was a call lasting 22 seconds. Is that right?
That's what the records say.
That's what the records say, but he says he has no recollection of it. And during the course of the trial, it played out that this was like the double butt dial back and forth at 2:22 in the morning, the night that John O'Keefe died. Now we're talking about another call that was made before that at 1:34. And we don't know who he was calling or got called by at 1:34 in the morning, which brings us to the next question in our investigation. Should the defense get all of Brian Higgins' phone records for once and for all, just to put it to sleep? The defense tried to get it in the first trial. They didn't get them. But now there's evidence of him on the phone at 1:34 that didn't come up in testimony. So should they get it? Joining me, great attorneys, Massachusetts criminal defense attorney Joseph Krowski Jr., and trial attorney who served as special counsel to Johnny Depp in his defamation case, Wayne Dennison, is with us. Great to have you both here. Joseph, your thoughts. Should the defense get all of Higgins' records now?
So it's interesting. This new laser focus on Higgins is kind of coinciding with what's going on in the trial. As you know, there's a hearing Friday related to the search that Jennifer McCabe purportedly made at 2:27 a.m. That search essentially has been invalidated, and that was the linchpin of the conspiracy theory. That kind of coincides with Karen Reed herself, who's a very active participant in her own defense, saying they were going to retool the defense for the second trial. She said that publicly approximately a month ago coming out of court, and it seems to be the retooling is now to focus on Brian Higgins. Look, they only get it if they can make a showing that it's relevant. The mere fact that someone makes a phone call or uses their phone is not necessarily relevant as applied to the Rule 17 standards in Massachusetts. One thing that you need to point out, though, or I need to point out, is Brian Higgins bought a new phone. He was alerted there was a preservation order for his old phone. He did not dispose of his phone while that preservation order was pending. He maintained the phone until he was notified that the court had officially denied the motion for access to an extraction of his phone. The only information we have is he destroyed a SIM card. As you know, SIM cards nowadays don't really store any data. It's basically confidential subscriber information. It's not Google searches. It's not photographs. It's not text messages. Another thing that's important is he brought it to law enforcement's attention that he had texted with Karen Reed prior to them having any knowledge of it. So he was proactive in turning that over. But just like you didn't get William Reed's phone and Karen Reed's mother's phone, you don't necessarily get a phone unless you can make the requisite showing. Other than the fact that the phone was used, I don't see any specific information laid out by way of affidavit that would entitle them to the phone or search of the cloud.
Wayne Dennison, your thoughts? Like, the phone call didn't come up during his testimony. Is it relevant?
Yes, if the standard is relevance, there's a real question as to how that phone was used that night. And there was certainly questions around the 222 phone calls and the purported butt dials. And we're talking about a call that's literally 1 hour before that, literally not even an hour, 50 minutes before that. The notion that the man testified that he was in bed, but he was in fact making phone calls suggests that there's at least a credibility issue that is reasonable to test him on.
So what's the harm here, Joseph, if the judge does order these records to be released?
Well, I don't think there was any testimony that he was asleep or home at 1:34 in the morning. And it sounds like from the cross-examination that Attorney Jackson had the toll data, meaning the call data from his phone records, because he cross-examined it regarding the 222 call. So it's really a question better posed to him for why he didn't bring up that call at 1:34 in the morning. It's not necessarily a question of harm. It's that the owner of the phone records, the owner of the privacy interest, Brian Higgins, has a right to challenge and contest that. Maybe he'll consent to a defendant motion for his records. I don't know. But again, you have to show relevance beyond the mere fact that the phone was used. We have strong privacy laws in Massachusetts that don't just protect Brian Higgins, they protect defendants and witnesses.
All right, Wayne Dennison, we have like 10 seconds here. Are you bothered by the fact that he destroyed that other phone?
I'm extraordinarily bothered by that fact. There is no credible explanation for it, and the one he tried to provide at trial made no sense at all.
All right, Joseph Krowski Jr., Wayne Dennison, sticking by. All right, up next, what is the significance of the Sally Port videos? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the Karen Read retrial. It's a tragic story where a Boston police officer who adopted his sister's orphaned children is killed. His girlfriend, Karen Read, is accused, but she and thousands of her supporters believe she's the victim of a police cover-up and frame job. Here's the story.
Karen Read stood on the steps of the courthouse in Dedham, Massachusetts, and proclaimed her innocence, telling the world she was not guilty and did not murder her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. And as Karen proclaimed her innocence, she also pointed the finger at the people she believed were responsible for the murder, people who she claimed were framing her for taking the life of John O'Keefe. Then, a local blogger and influencer named Turtle Boy picked up the story, believing Karen was framed by dirty cops. Then Turtle Boy's followers started showing up at the courthouse, making allegations of a conspiracy and a cover-up. Things got personal. It divided the community. Then finally, the trial happened. 9 weeks of testimony and evidence meant to clear things up and show the truth to the jury. But in the end, the jury was as divided as the community, and they deadlocked. Now a retrial has been scheduled, and both sides are fighting it out in court as they prepare for round 2 of this bitter, bitter battle.
You have to be there. If you were there at the courthouse, you understand the passion that everyone involved in this has, both inside the courtroom and outside the courthouse. Inside the courtroom, obviously, John O'Keefe, his family, the prosecution team taking this very, very personally, the DA taking this personally, and then the passion of Karen Read, her family, and her defense team. And then you get to the thousands of people outside and online who are invested in this and believe what they believe, and you cannot, trust me, you cannot change their mind about it. Well, now you're getting ready for the retrial, and both sides are continuing that battle inside the courtroom, pre-trial motions. Second trial is going to be a little different than the first one. You've got a different prosecutor, and there's some evidence that may be a little different as well. So let's focus in now on the so-called Sally Port videos, which loomed large in the first case, especially for the defense. This is really a defense issue and part of their case here. But here, Trooper Buchanan from the Massachusetts State Police on the stand testifying about what they did with Karen Read's car. Such an important piece of evidence because it's all about that rear tail light. Was it shattered or was it broken by police to frame Karen Reed? Take a listen.
This video captures the vehicle being moved into position to be loaded up onto the flatbed for transport from the scene.
Gentlemen, if you could play. Pause right there.
I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
I just asked her to pause right there. Sergeant Buchanan, from this still image from this video, what, if anything, of significance do you observe in relation to the vehicle at this time that is being loaded onto the tow truck?
The rear taillight is illuminated. You could see a white light coming from that taillight.
If you could, using that laser pointer you have before you, just direct the jury's attention to the specific area you're talking about.
Right there.
Okay. Ms. Gilman, if you could play this through the...
Once we left the residence in Dighton, we proceeded following the tow truck back to the Canton Police Department.
And was there anywhere else that either you or the tow truck went between Dighton and the Canton Police Department?
No, sir.
And when you say we, it's yourself and Trooper Proctor, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, once you arrived at the Canton Police Department, where did the vehicle go?
The vehicle was unloaded and put into a heated sally port located at the Canton Police Department.
And in reference to the Canton Police Department and putting it in the sally port, why was it that it was taken to that location?
It's a location that serves as a storage for a vehicle that would suffice for the size of the vehicle. The location is, as it related to the crime that took place was investigated, was in that town. So we utilized their facility. It was also a heated facility to help melt the snow that had been accumulating on the vehicle.
And Sergeant, as far as the condition of the vehicle as you observe it in this sort of pause still shot of the video, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of the condition as far as the snow or ice or anything you observe on that vehicle when it came into the Sally Port garage?
Yes, it is.
So there you saw at the end the video from the Sally Port at the Canton PD. During the trial, this became another one of those huge moments, which brings us to the next question in our investigation, which is, what is the significance of the Sally Port videos? Why is it important? Why is it important? What story do the videos tell? Joining me, Karen Reed supporter, creator of the Justice for Officer John O'Keefe and Karen Reed Facebook page, Nick Rocco, and the creator of the Yellow Cottage Tales YouTube channel, Kevin Lenahan, is with us. This was a big moment. I want to play one of those big parts of the big moment involving these videos before we start talking about it. This is on the cross-examination of the same trooper.
That shows the vehicle coming into the Sally Port, and we're looking at which side of the vehicle?
So that is the driver's side of the vehicle. What that video depicts is a mirror collection. Although mirrors are accurate representation of what you're seeing, it's just inverted. So that is the driver's side of the vehicle. I do not know why it is inverted, but that's the way it was presented, collected and presented from Canton Police.
Do you see the person toward the back of the vehicle walking toward the opposite side of the SUV?
I do.
What area does he appear to be going to?
He appears to be going towards the rear passenger side of the vehicle, although it does not appear so because the video is inverted, a mirror image. That's where he's going.
And you testified that it was reflective of your observations of what was happening in that Sally Port that evening, correct?
I testified that this is a accurate scene and collection of video evidence from the Sally Port.
And as that truck sits in that Sally Port, just like this, it appears from all perspective that what we're looking at is the passenger side of the car, and that right rear taillight is right there shining in our face, correct? From this perspective.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
From this perspective, from the perspective that the jurors are looking at,
Okay.
from all indications, that would appear to be the right side of the truck, the passenger side of the truck, and that taillight that you can see is the right rear taillight from this perspective, correct?
The way it presents itself, yes.
And yesterday, during the entirety of your questioning by Mr. Lau, not once did you mention that this video is actually completely inverted.
I did not know.
It was bizarre. The video was presented inverted by the prosecution without telling anyone that was inverted. That all came out on cross. All right, Nick, what is the significance of these Sally Port videos?
So when you first look at this vehicle, if you don't know it's inverted, you think you're looking at her passenger side taillight, which would have been what the state is saying is broken. So if you actually look at the back of the vehicle, you see a white light on that taillight. And when someone walks by, that white light actually ends up on their jacket, which means that light there it was manually put there, which then leads into Yuri Buchanan's testimony in Adam Lally's questioning saying, nobody went near her passenger side taillight. Look at the video. Nobody went near it. We went to the other side, which is a big issue because if you're looking at this and you don't know it's inverted, you would think that they would tell him the truth, which then leads into Mr. Eckerson coming to the Canton PD, which was a meeting arranged by Hank Brennan and Colleen Crowley, which is the Commonwealth's expert. They knew he was coming, and when he gets there from Arizona, they tell him everything's deleted and the hardware is gone too. And there's only one reason why they would do that. And the reason why they did that was because if he had access to look at that video camera, it would show and prove that that video camera does not record invertedly. And then that would be 1,000% concrete evidence that evidence was manipulated by the Commonwealth to try to frame Karen Reed.
Kevin, none of this looks good for prosecution. And we're looking here at the how it was shown in court, and then the corrected version is on the right, and you really get a different idea of what's happening inside the Sally Port. From your perspective, what is the significance of the Sally Port videos?
Absolutely nothing, because it turns out that video cameras, surveillance shift cameras, usually record in the video in the original file inverted, and then it converts it back on playback. So there was some kind of a mistake here where there was some confusion on that. But the important thing people have to remember here is that if you look there, the Sally Port door is open. It closes, so the car pulls into the garage at 5:36. The Sally Port door closes at 12:42. The crime scene is 5 minutes away, 5-minute drive away. And I sent you guys a picture if you have it, but you can see the CERT team, 7-man CERT team, digging at the crime scene, which is about the size of 2 parking spaces. It's a very small area. And they find the main piece under 3 feet of snow, was the testimony, at 5:45. So there was no time for anybody here to somehow fill up a bag of taillight pieces and get there and bury it in those 3 feet of snow, unless everybody at the scene, those 7 people crammed into that spot, those 7 troopers, unless they're all in on it, and unless the Lieutenant Tully and whoever else is there in on it. It's a level of conspiracy that is completely absurd. But the job of the defense is to try to create odd-looking things. So, for instance, the Brian Higgins thing, it's not odd at all. It turns out that he just got rid of his garbage on a military base because he lives on Cape Cod where they don't have town trash pickup. You have to pay for it. He stops at the base, which is on the way to the mainland every day when he's coming back. He's a veteran, so you can buy discounted goods there and throw out a bag of trash. There was nothing weird about it. He just threw out his phone, and the only thing that it had on it was contact information. You don't have video or data stored on those things anymore. So it turns out that most of the stuff that the defense, and I know it's their job, is to take the ordinary and make it look really suspicious. But if you wait for the explanation, and they almost have always come in this case, whether it's non-human hairs or gaps in library videos or missing shoes, on and on and on it goes. Everything so far has had an explanation.
All right, I have to cut you off, Kevin. We're out of time, but Nick, I'll give you 10 seconds to respond.
Just back to the question, which was the Sally port. You look at the inverted video, okay? If that recorded invertedly, the timestamp would not have read the correct way. That means someone manually altered that, so you read the timestamp correctly, but the video was flipped. So when you take an inverted video and you flip it, the timestamp gets inverted as well, not just the video. And it's smoke and mirrors. The Commonwealth's the one that put it into the case, not the defense. Now the defense is just calling them out for it.
All right, Nick Rocco, Kevin Lenahan, always great to have your perspectives. We appreciate it. Still to come, are these missing videos a problem for prosecutors?
And that 42 minutes from when the car arrived until 5:50 in the evening, that portion is missing, correct?
It's not missing, it's just not recorded.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
But Sergeant, the exact time that would show what Trooper Proctor was doing at the right rear taillight, that is missing.
Objection.
Sustained.
The exact time that would show what the person who you identified on Wednesday as being Trooper Proctor, that video is not there, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
This video, Sergeant, you will agree, if that 42-minute period existed, that would have been the only video that would establish the actual condition of the taillight the moment the SUV arrived in police custody in that Sally Port, correct?
Objection.
You can ask that differently.
Is there any other video other than this one that would show the exact condition of that taillight as it pulled in to the driveway, to the Sally Port? Or is this the only one?
From that location?
Correct.
That is the video that captures that time frame.
And that's also the video that captures that area of the car, correct? The right rear portion of the car.
Correct.
And that 42 minutes from when the car arrived until 5:50 in the evening, that portion is missing, correct?
It's not missing, it's just not recorded.
It's not there, Sergeant Buchnick. I'm not splitting words with you, splitting hairs. It's not there. It's gone, correct?
It's not on the screen now.
It's not anywhere, is it?
I do not know.
So the defense made a big deal about those 42 minutes. Why is there no recording there? Where is that video? Now, more recently, they have sent an expert to the Sally Port to examine the computer, the system, everything else. And the defense expert was told it doesn't exist. All the videos are destroyed after 30 days. The machine's not even here anymore. So nothing is there now. It's all gone. The machine, the 42 minutes, if it even existed, any way to even examine the recordings, examine the machines that did the recordings, are all gone. Brings me to the next question of my investigation. Are the missing videos a problem for prosecutors? Joining me, Massachusetts criminal defense attorney, he's a good one, Joseph Krowski Jr. And you remember him very well, trial attorney who served as special trial counsel to Johnny Depp in his defamation case. Wayne Dennison is with us. All right, Joseph, is this a problem for prosecutors? All this stuff is gone?
No, I think it might be a problem for counsel for the defendant. You got to remember, the date of alleged offense here is January 29th, 2022. The way discovery works, right, is the Commonwealth reaches out, gets whatever they have in their custody and control, and they copy it and they provide it to counsel for the defendant. So it's not that all of the video is missing. It looks like what the prosecutor had in his or her possession and thought was germane to the case they turned over. Now, 3 years later, it looks like there's some sort of informal agreement where Alan Jackson wants to fly an expert out to do what we call a forensic extraction. I know, just on experience, if you want to do a forensic extraction, you typically got to get to that DVR within 30 to 60 days. You have to file a motion to preserve. I looked at the dockets from district court and superior court, and I didn't see that done. And why would it be that interesting to the Commonwealth at first? This whole suggestion of conspiracy wasn't even brought up by the defense until a year and a half into the case. At the time, they're dealing with what they thought was a hit-and-run drunk driving accident. They preserved the video, copied it to a flash drive, and turned it over. And I'm a little surprised during trial, when the whole issue of it being inverted came up, that the defense didn't right away file a motion to preserve the DVR. So I think it's a little bit too late, so I don't think they're going to get any traction from it whatsoever.
Wayne Dennison, your thoughts about the missing videos, the missing DVR, and the video? Like, we still don't have an answer as to why that video was inverted.
Yeah, I disagree with Joe on this. I think that this will be a big issue at trial. 80% of retrials are convictions because they get, the prosecution gets to, practice their act and come back and do it again. This is one of those areas that is just literally inexplicable. Why is this video inverted? And still the timestamp is appropriate and placed in the right place. And the whole issue around this video has not been explained in a meaningful way. And it's the Commonwealth who chose to put this video into evidence. If they wanted this video in evidence, they ought to preserve that evidence.
Joseph, I'll give you the final word here. I only have about 15 seconds or so. Will the jury...
Sure,
go ahead. I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
The shock and awe of that unforced error is going to be mitigated on the retrial. That's why prosecutors have an advantage. They're going to prepare for it. I'm sure they're going to come up with an explanation to show that you cannot manually record it in an inverted manner. So I think they're going to deal with it. I don't think we'll have the probative effect that it did in the first trial.
Big thank you. I know you guys are busy. We appreciate your time. Joseph Krowski Jr., Wayne Dennison, we'll see you again really, really soon. Trials need to be fair. Now, even if you believe the defendant is an awful, horrific human who's committed murder, the same rules apply to everyone. In this case, Karen Read has many more supporters than all accused killers I've ever covered in my career combined. And there seems to be a lot of pushback because of that. But the same rules apply to Karen Read. Just because she's popular is not a reason to deny her a fair trial. And that's the job of the judge here. Treat her no different than any other defendant. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.